So you've managed to make yourself a nice base. Whether it's a giant fortress, a Pictish longhouse, or just a small stone brick home, that's only half the job done. Decorating your base is just as important as building it, and honestly decorating can be pretty difficult. There are many different ways of decorating a build, so today I'm going to be going through my personal method of how I decorate my builds, and how I decide what to put where. I made one of these videos quite a while ago, but I think it is time for an update. The last tip on this list is my personal favourite decoration concept, so without further ado, let's get started. When choosing to decorate your build, the first question you should ask yourself should be, what's my theme? Sometimes this will be a really easy question, as it's sometimes dictated by what you built your base with. If you've chosen Yamatai, aim for a Japanese style, Khitan, ancient China, Savage Frontier, or Viking style decorations. However, some builds will be harder. Let's say you've built this small 4x4 home using a stable fence foundation base and a mix of stone and wood. What can you do? Well, there are quite a few options and it's all personal preference on what you want to choose. You could turn this build into a farmhouse, maybe a workshop. How about an apothecary? There are tons of options for themes, though your theme should be somewhat guided by your architecture choice and your overall building plan. Would I expect to see an Argosian fountain in a Viking long hall? No, but an open hearth in the centre of the room, that is much more fitting. The best way to choose your theme is simply to think about it logically, and in these more flexible builds, simply determine what theme you like and create it. I've used fence foundations a lot lately, in both large and small builds to draw out a room plan before I ever even place the first ceiling. This helps me to visually structure my build in the early stages, and it also helps me to work out what room should go where. Let's take a look at this relatively simple base plate made from fence foundations. I usually designate rooms in my head whilst building, but here's an easy way to visualise that. As you can see here, by simply just taking a moment or two to look over your initial base plate and mark out the rooms, either in your head on a piece of paper or with signs within the build itself, it makes things much easier to plan ahead of time. I'm probably atypical from most in that I build straight from my head without any real planning, and whilst that does work for me most of the time, planning ahead is a great way to improve your builds and to be more organised in your efforts. It's definitely better than running into a room with loads of different ideas and not being sure which one to choose, and I would recommend you designate your rooms ahead of time if you are struggling with decoration, planning and structuring. Atmosphere is an interesting concept in a build. It's something that can make or break a design, as it creates a very tangible feeling within the build that will set the mood for basically everything else. There are multiple ways to create a nice atmosphere, and the biome you build in will sometimes lend itself to that, but perhaps the most important building block of player-created atmosphere is lighting. Here I've built a nice little cabin in the Ashlands, and I've lit it with glowing torches for the maximum amount of visibility and ease of movement within the build. However, we're in the Ashlands, a dark, creepy biome, and whilst this lighting might be practical, it can kind of ruin the atmosphere that could be created in this build. Now, if we change the lighting from lots of glowing torches over to the softer, warmer aquilonian braziers, you can kind of see how the atmosphere of the biome creeps into the build, almost like the walls and the light is the only thing keeping the ever-increasing darkness at bay. Also, having this warm light tone really nicely contrasts against the exterior, which is always a nice thing to have. There are plenty of other ways to reinforce this atmosphere, of course. If you're on PC, you can use a wide variety of mods to include cobwebs, stains, dilapidated items, etc. to fit the vibe of the build. Of course, this vibe will be different across a wide variety of builds, and that well-lit neutral light of the glowing torches might work really nicely for an Aquilonian palace, whereas dyed radium might work really well for Terranian or Stormglass builds. Some lighting works really well for certain materials too. For example, warm light from flames really bring out the golden tones of Terranian or Stormglass, whereas neutral or cold lighting options suppresses those same tones. Again, it's just a logical approach of what sort of lighting and decoration brings the best out of the material you are using, whilst also considering your theme, and of course the biome you're building in. Decoration isn't just placeables, it can often be done through architecture. Take a look at this wall design, it's fairly boring and flat, and it really doesn't say anything about what it would be protecting, nor does it really have any personality or character. However, we can fix that by simply adding buttresses to support an overhanging walkway, along with footers and awnings The wall not only looks much stronger, but also has a lot more personality and shape to it. The same applies to houses, castles, temples, and everything else. Flat walls are ugly, that's no secret, but by layering your build and adding different structures to a core shape, it can really help to create a visually interesting build. These extra structures can be rooms, galleries, balconies, or they can just be cosmetic sections that don't play into the interior of the build. If you create a 4x4 at the heart of your build, for example, and add rooms, walkways, supports, etc. onto the outside of that, you'll eventually end up with a build design that is a bit more complex and well designed. I definitely advise playing around with sloped sides too. These pieces have tons of uses in roof designs, window concepts, or just build detailing in general. Furthermore, it's often better to create a build with multiple smaller roofs rather than one large roof, as you can see in this example build, as it really helps to build up the structure and depth of what you're building. To summarise this point, the best way to decorate your build with architecture is to layer elements around the core of the build to create some more interesting shapes and designs that help to change your house from just a box into a multifaceted structure. Going back to more traditional decoration, it's important to build some character into your decoration. Building rooms according to their purpose is fine, but creating character in those rooms is what really breathes life into the build. But how do you do that? Think about your room, your kitchen or your bathroom. Important things will be placed around you and they're never perfectly aligned. For example, sitting at my desk right now recording this, my coffee mug is directly above my mouse in front of my right hand, my phone is underneath my main monitor, and I have a drink on the left side of my desk. This is something I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, and it's a natural thing that we don't really think about too often when we're building Conan or any other building games really. Having important items close to the areas the residents would regularly be in is a good way to build some character and a purpose, and of course you can place those decorations depending on if you want your character to be left or right-handed. Furthermore, when you place decorations, especially multiple in a row like on a shelf, it's often best to rotate them slightly. Put them out of uniform order, maybe leave one or two missing, or lean them against one another. Having this slightly lived-in, disorganised, almost chaotic method to your decoration will help to make your build feel more like a place that is often used rather than a pristine home frozen in time. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you do want that pristine style, and it can also be used to show character. A character that obsesses over details or is very meticulous and strategic would likely have everything in his home in a clean, orderly fashion, though a more chaotic character would definitely live in a more messy environment. Also, try to give important decorations just a little bit of breathing room. Storage, beds, workbenches, these are all important items, and whilst having them close to each other helps with practical efficiency, giving the important items that room to breathe helps to create a better sense of personality and purpose within each room. The theme of the build and the residents that live there often influence how you show character through decoration, but it's the little things you do whilst decorating that help to show off that personality. Finally, my favourite concept in decoration is probably flow. This isn't solely in decoration, it's firstly guided by architecture and then filled out through the decoration process, so it's crucial that your build does have good bones to enable good flow. Firstly though, what is flow? Well, personally, I define it as the ability to move freely and smoothly throughout the build, guided by corridors and other leading elements, with easy access to all important areas. Flow is something that is somewhat intangible in a build. It's very hard to point out and quantify and say that is flow, but the structure of your decoration and architecture will help to influence that. Here I'm going to be showing you an overhead screenshot of the ground floor of a build in the early stages of construction. As you can see, the corridor going through the build guides where the resident would walk, with important rooms being shown ahead of or to the side of the resident's line of sight. These are important rooms that would be used often, so having the corridor lead to them easily is a great way to establish a base level of flow. You'll notice that this room in particular is an indirect line of the corridor, and that's because this would be the bathroom. We don't want people wandering into the bathroom and walking in on anyone else, so having it placed away from the line of sight means that people are only going to visit it if they absolutely need to. Of course, this can be reduced down. On a room by room basis, flow can be defined differently within rooms. Let's take a look at this kitchen. As you can see, I've marked the intended path through the room in green. Having this clear path through the room to all of the utilities help to make the room easier to navigate and use, whilst also creating a more interesting structure within the room itself. Sometimes though, depending on what you're building, you'll want to have intentionally bad flow. If you're building a well-defended stronghold, or in this case a maze, you don't want to guide people easily towards the most important parts of the build. You want to misdirect the person or put obstacles in front of them, or in the case of a stronghold, force them to go through various checkpoints before reaching the heart of the build. Having intentionally bad flow is a great way to create an interesting maze, or a well-defended stronghold. Flow is something that's hard to explain, and even harder to quantify, but through trial and error you'll hopefully nail this aspect of your builds, and it will really elevate any room or corridor or any build in general, and it will just make the build feel much more pleasant to be in. And there we have it, my revamped decoration guide. I definitely went a bit more in depth with this guide, and hopefully it will help you out if you are struggling with decoration. I struggled with it for quite a while, and I sometimes still do, but hopefully my long and arduous learning process can help you guys skip the trial and error of working out how to decorate effectively. If you've enjoyed this video, leave a like and let me know what builds you want to see in the comments below. As usual, anything is welcome. There are new videos coming at least twice a week, so do feel free to subscribe. Only 20% of my viewers are actually subscribed to the channel, so if you're new here and you've enjoyed this video, or you've seen a few of my videos before, hit the big red button to join the coffee cult. There are plenty more videos coming for you to enjoy. As usual, the links to my Twitch, Patreon and Discord are in the description. You can get 66% off a 2-year deal with NordVPN plus a month free when you visit nordvpn.org/EarEdYT or use code EarEdYT at checkout. I use Nord a lot to watch region-locked content, but I would personally recommend it to anyone that values their privacy online. Purchasing NordVPN through my link goes a long way to help me and the channel out, and you also get access to the best rated VPN service on the market, so I'd recommend at least taking a look if you are interested. Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you are not 100% satisfied with the service, you can get your money back quickly and easily. The links to get that discount are down in the description below, or you can just enter code EarEdYT at checkout. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can become an esteemed cultist on Patreon, where you'll get access to exclusive Discord roles, sneak peeks of new videos, and your name at the end of every video. On that note, a thanks to our patrons Sammy, Sadialot, Randar, Connor, Blue Ivy, Velma, Torn, and Eagle Rose. Again, thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.